But now I want to speak on behalf of the 5,200 brave men and women of the Houston Police Department and the other 800,000 police officers that are working these streets every single day, putting their lives on the line. We are sick and tired of having targets on our back. We are sick and tired of having dirtbags trying to take our lives when all we're trying to do is protect this community and protect our families. Enough is enough. And if you're the ones that are out there spreading the rhetoric that police officers are the enemy, well, just know we've all got your number now. We're going to be keeping track of all of y'all, and we're going to make sure that we hold you accountable every time you stir the pot on our police officers. We've had enough, folks. We're out there doing our jobs every day, putting our lives on the line for our families. Enough is enough.
Houston police are investigating a gun battle that left 5 officers injured, including 4 who were shot. Suspects opened fire yesterday when police tried to serve a drug-related warrant. Police shot and killed 2 suspects. Maria Villarreal is at Memorial Hermann Texas Medical Center in Houston, where 2 of the officers are in critical condition this morning. Mireya, good morning.
Well, good morning. About a dozen officers or so were attempting to serve a narcotics search warrant, working off a tip from a neighbor. The suspects were allegedly selling black tar heroin out of that home, and when they immediately approached, they were immediately met by gunfire.
We have multiple officers shot. Multiple officers shot. We have multiple enemies.
A barrage of gunfire erupted around 5 p.m.
We got officers down.
when undercover narcotics officers attempted a raid on a southeast Houston home.
Immediately upon breaching the door, the officers came under fire from 1 or 2 suspects inside the house.
Police say the suspects were armed with semi-automatic weapons.
And then it stopped, and then again.
There was a total maybe about 15 shots, I believe.
Cell phone video captured 2 officers running from the home.
There goes one SWAT. He shot in the arm.
Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo says one of the officers had been shot in the line of duty before.
He was there in the front lines. If that doesn't tell you about the heart of the men and women we have the privilege to lead, I don't know what will.
According to the FBI, the number of law enforcement deaths by weapons has increased and could climb. 43 officers were killed in the line of duty in 2017 compared to 53 last year. In the last 5 years, 804 on-duty officers have been killed. President of the Houston Police Officers Union, Joe Gamaldi.
We are sick and tired of having targets on our back. We are sick and tired of having dirtbags trying to take our lives when all we're trying to do is protect this community and protect our families. Enough is enough.
All morning long, we have seen police officers come into the hospital and show their support. This morning, 2 officers that were shot in the neck, they were in surgery. They are out this morning, but in critical condition. 1 was shot in the shoulder. He has been released, and 2 more are in stable condition and recovering here. John?
Maria, thank you. May that recovery be speedy.
5 police officers in Houston are recovering after a deadly shootout yesterday during a drug raid. 2 were shot in the neck and are in serious condition tonight. Maria Villarreal takes us through exactly what happened.
Cell phone video captures the chaos. 2 officers running from the scene after a gun battle.
Well, he shot in the arm.
That left 4 officers with gunshot wounds and another injured Monday evening. Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo.
I mean, it happened almost immediately. And so when he got in, a really large pit bull started charging him. And we're not sure if he was shooting at, if that officer was shooting at the pit bull, but immediately the other suspect, the male suspect, came in to the living room and started shooting him, shot him in the shoulder. He went down.
Almost point blank?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was a very small space.
We have multiple officers shot. We have multiple enemies.
Narcotics officers were attempting to serve a drug-related search warrant in southeast Houston.
We got officers down.
The initial exchange of gunfire lasted about 5 minutes.
There was a total maybe about 15 shots, I believe.
The suspects, 58-year-old Rhogena Nicholas and 59-year-old Dennis Tuttle, were killed at the scene. Emotions ran high as officers gathered outside the hospital last night, waiting for news.
We are sick and tired of having dirtbags trying to take our lives when all we're trying to do is protect this community and protect our families.
The oldest officer to enter the home was 54 years old. The 32-year-old police veteran was shot in the face. It's the 3rd time he's been shot in the line of duty.
He's a hero.
What compels somebody to do that?
I just think that's the way police officers are wired. They're just special. They don't run away from gunfire. They run towards it, and I think that was on display yesterday.
The chief refers to that veteran police officer as a big teddy bear. And Jeff, he actually shared a story with us after meeting with the officer in his hospital room, saying he can't talk right now because of his injuries. However, he wrote a note saying, "I had to go in there. My guys were down."
All right, Maria, thank you for that report.
And other areas, but let's listen in again as Police Chief Art Acevedo updates us.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for your patience. First and foremost, I want to just say, or off the bat, that no officer has died, and folks are trying to start those rumors. So I want to say that right off the bat. Before I make some specific comments on what occurred tonight, Mayor Turner and the council members here, Mayor Turner, will open up the briefing. Mayor.
Let me just start off by saying that this has been a tough day for our city, but I certainly want to encourage all Houstonians to pray for all of our police officers who are at Memorial Hermann. So pray for all of our police officers. Pray for them, and pray for their families. Pray for their spouses, their children, their parents. So pray for those who will be flying from outside of the state, and pray for those who are on the road driving in. I want to thank the Houston Police Department and others for clearing the roadway, for clearing the freeway. Let me just say this: our job is to keep people safe in our city. And I want to be very clear, is that, we do not tolerate any sort of activity, whether it's drug activity, drug trafficking, whether it's whatever it may be. We don't tolerate it in our city. That we want to work night and day to make sure that our city remains safe. We don't want anyone injured in any manner. And so I'm just very grateful and thankful for everyone who's come together. Pray for all the police officers, and I want to thank all of you.
Narcotics officers from the Houston Police Department, from the Group 15, initiated a search warrant at the location at the 700 block of Harding Street. Upon making entry, they immediately came under fire. The first officer through the door, armed with a shotgun, was charged immediately by a very large pit bull that charged at that officer. He discharged rounds that we know that the dog was struck and killed. At the same time, a male suspect came from around the back and started an open fire with a .357 Magnum revolver. That officer was struck in the shoulder. He went down, fell on the sofa in the living room, at which time a female suspect went towards that officer, reached over the officer, and started making a move for his shotgun. At that time, backup officers, other officers in the staff that made entry, discharged their firearms, striking that female suspect. An exchange of gunfire continued between that officer who was struck. The first, the officer that I described yesterday, that's 54 years of age, this is the third time in his career he's been shot. The injured officers, the officer that was shot in the face, again, that hopefully will be released sometime today or tomorrow or sometime this week, is a 50-year-old sergeant and a 25-year veteran of the Houston Police Department. Another officer that sustained the injury to his knee that actually required surgery and that has been completed and will probably get out this week is a 50-year sergeant and a 50-year-old sergeant and a 27-year veteran. The officer that I described, senior officer that I described, is 54 years old and a 32-year veteran, and the case agent is the one that, after he saw his fellow officers come under fire, he heroically made that entry, and I'm just going to say it, he just passed a note to one of us, one of our officers, that said, I had to get in there because I knew my guys were down. The female suspect that you see there that actually was shot in the living room when she went to grab the fallen officer's shotgun is identified. She's a female white, identified as and I will spell it out for you. First name, Rhogena, R-H-O-G-E-N-A. Last name of Nicholas, N-I-C-H-O-L-A-S, 58 years of age. The male suspect that actually engaged in the firefight with the officers is 59 years of age. He's also a white male, and he is identified as Dennis, D-E-N-N-I-S, Tuttle, T-U-T-T-L-E. Search of the premises revealed the presence of marijuana in the location. We also recovered another drug, white powdery substance believed to either be cocaine or potentially fentanyl. We recovered 2 12-gauge shotguns, 1 20-gauge shotgun, 1 22 caliber rifle, and 1 Remington 700 rifle. Those are the items that were recovered in the target location.
The controversial Harding Street police raid is raising questions about the actions of Houston police officers.
The FBI is now involved as HPD's own internal investigation drags into its 4th month. Channel 2 Investigates has led the way on this story. We were first to report the warrant obtained by police, and it was based on lies. And last Thursday, we were first to report that the autopsy results for Dennis Tuttle and Rhogena Nicholas.
Tonight, investigator Mario Diaz reveals allegations of uncollected evidence at the home on Harding Street. And Mario explains where the case stands now.
We have multiple officers shot.
Nearly 100 days later,
We have the house surrounded. We got units in the back. We still got officers inside.
the botched Harding Street raid is still unraveling. Rhogena Nicholas and Dennis Tuttle are dead. Members of HPD's narcotics team have left the force or are under investigation. And Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo still has not turned over the case to the District Attorney's Office for review.
And let me tell you why I think these cops are heroes.
On January 28th, it was chaos on Harding Street. Within the first few hours, HPD brass raced in front of cameras, attempting to defend their officers, not knowing what had really happened.
Because we had a search warrant that narcotics activity was going on in that residence, specifically the sale of black tar heroin.
The next morning, Chief Acevedo continued to build the narrative.
We actually bought black tar heroin at that location.
The couple portrayed as drug dealers without fear of the law.
A male suspect came from around the back and started an open fire with a .357 Magnum. A female suspect went towards that officer, reached over the officer, and started making a move for his shotgun.
On January 31st, Chief Acevedo revealed HPD's Narcotics Division began an investigation after officers responded to a 911 call outside the home weeks earlier.
What's the details on the call slip? Daughter's at location. She possibly thinks there's drugs, guns inside the residence.
The officer wrote a detailed note within the call slip history to document their actions, what they had learned, and what they had done.
Our investigation revealed the officer's call slip had no details, and no police report was actually filed after that 911 call. But the story behind the raid really fell apart the morning of February 15th.
Channel 2 Investigates learning this morning there are big problems.
Documents revealed lying cops manufactured an unlawful warrant, giving officers the green light to go in without knocking. Hours after we broke the story, Chief Acevedo doubled down on his department's actions.
It's really important for the community to realize we still had a reason to be at that home. We should not draw final conclusions, as disturbing as it is, until we uncover every single investigative lead.
Chief, you indicated you had reason to be at that home. There appears to be no reason listed in this affidavit.
But to remember, that affidavit is but one piece of a very comprehensive investigation.
5 days later, the FBI gets involved.
They have opened a formal civil rights investigation.
District Attorney Kim Ogg's office also is investigating and announced it's reviewing more than 2,200 cases tied to the case agent, Gerald Goines, and fellow narcotics officer, Stephen Bryant.
People are going to see what really happened. We'll get to the truth. I think you can expect to see something, a case presented or cases presented to grand juries this summer.
Investigators have filed a barrage of search warrants aimed at Goines and Bryant, seeking data from their phones and offices.
This is a very active crime scene.
Mike Doyle, a lawyer for the Nicholas family, claims his team found sloppy forensics work at the home. Evidence uncollected by investigators.
There's bullets still on the walls. There's blood trails all over the house. house that there's no indication of DNA being collected.
Channel 2 Investigates is the only TV station to go inside the home. We did so on April 16th with Cliff Tuttle.
Look at that. A man 5'6". What are they shooting at?
Cliff made his position clear.
Do you feel that the cops had a reason to be inside this home?
No. Definitely not.
Do you trust HPD with their investigation?
Not totally. Somebody made a bad mistake. Somebody needs to pay. We need the answers.
One key answer desired. Why does Chief Art Acevedo feel that officers still had reason to be in the home if lying cops manufactured a warrant? To this day, no reason has been presented. Meanwhile, narcotics officers Gerald Goines and Stephen Bryant retired after being relieved of duty. Also relieved of duty, Angel August, an officer involved in the internal investigation.
We have an officer who has been relieved, but we certainly don't want anyone to read too far into something like this. There are officers that get relieved of duty, and then they come back to work with no discipline whatsoever. It is not uncommon while an investigation goes on for someone to be relieved of duty. So until we've spoken to the case agent in this case, we're not drawing any conclusions, and no one should either otherwise.
What can you tell us about him being relieved of duty? I mean, when did it happen, and why you're not, and what are the circumstances?
I can't confirm exactly when he was relieved of duty or what the circumstances are. Obviously it's an ongoing investigation, and we're going to have to let it take its course.
Does it give you some measure of pause or concern, given the high-profile nature of this incident, given all the social media rumors that have been swirling out there that Chief Acevedo has already addressed? This was an officer connected to, a search warrant that ended in a deadly shootout.
Mm-hmm. Whenever we have a high-profile case like this, the rumor mill always gets going, and people have theories and different things. But the fact of the matter is, we still have yet to speak to the case agent because he is in the hospital incapacitated. And until we speak to the case agent, I think it would be impossible for anyone to really draw any conclusions about another officer being relieved of duty.
Well, it does seem, though, that clearly they have enough information to make that determination.
The department sometimes relieves people of duty that we don't necessarily understand the reasoning why, but it's important that the investigation takes its course, and that a lot of times people get it, relieved of duty and nothing happens. They don't get disciplined, there's nothing that comes of it, but sometimes they relieve them because they just don't want people talking around the station house or other things that go on, and nobody should read too much into simply someone being relieved of duty.
Our information that we just published is that one focus of the investigation centers around the purported controlled buy, which according to the search warrant occurred a day before officers moved in on Harding Street, and that there are questions about the validity of the purported controlled buy. The mere fact that there's questions surrounding that is a serious issue, is it not?
Well, it's impossible for us to know until we have spoken to that case agent who is currently incapacitated at the hospital because he was shot in the face. And until we can get a statement from him, it's impossible to glean anything from this person being relieved of duty.
For the record, has this individual, who we are not naming, who's been relieved, sought help from the union, legal help or otherwise?
As of right now, I'm not aware of him reaching out to us.
Does it seem to, like, from what we've been told, it centers around the fact that perhaps they did not do their due diligence leading up to getting this no-knock warrant?
I think it's impossible to know if the due diligence was done until we have spoken to the case agent who is currently incapacitated at the hospital. Until we get a statement from him, I think it's impossible to glean anything from this person being relieved of duty.
When were you guys informed officially that he was relieved of duty?
We have not been informed officially from the department that he's been relieved of duty.
Chief Acevedo has gone on record numerous times saying he'll leave no stone unturned, whether it's the good, the bad, the ugly, or the beautiful. I'm slightly paraphrasing, but I think I'm pretty accurate, that this investigation, will uncover what it uncovers, and he will subsequently at the end share findings with the community. Do you, as a union president, embrace that and welcome that, or what's your message from the union side of the aisle to the public?
No, accountability is important. We always have to make sure we get to the bottom of every single officer-involved shooting that we get into, and I'm certain that we're going to get to the bottom of this one as soon as the case agent is able to give a statement and clarify some of the things that are going on right now and some of the rumors that are out there.
If you were not told of officially that he was relieved of duty, how did you guys find out?
I'm being told from all of the media sources who have said that he has been relieved of duty, but the department did not formally notify us that he was relieved of duty.
Would you like to add anything, sir?
That's it.
Moving forward, HPD's Narcotics Division will have a new leader effective May the 18th. Channel 2 Investigates has learned that HPD Commander Paul Fallis is being transferred to Hobby Airport. HPD says Mental Health Division Commander William Staney will be taking over narcotics. It is all part of a department-wide shuffle involving 10 commanders, according to HPD. And Bill Dominique Commander Fallis was recently transferred to Hobby Airport.
Now, Mario, HPD has turned over its investigation to the DA's office. Was there a deadline presented at the time?
Bill, originally the chief told me that it would be by late April at the latest. That deadline, as we first reported last week, has now been pushed back to May the 15th.
Okay.
Well, we just heard what the DA, Kim Ogg, says as well about now summertime.
For her office,
correct.
I mean, there's 3 investigations here that you have to keep in mind. DA's office is waiting to get all that information from HPD, as well as to mix that in with what they have.
100 days out from this.
They want to get to the bottom of it. They're going to take their time to make sure that the whole truth comes out.
All right, Mario.
Thank you.
Quite frankly, I think that probably some of the consternation might be less to do with the actions of our narcotics division and more to do with some of the comments that were somewhat over the top by Joe Grimaldi.
Tonight, the head of the Houston Police Officers Union is setting the record straight about strong words he made last night that have many of you talking on our Facebook page.
We are sick and tired of having dirtbags trying to take our lives when all we're trying to do is protect this community and protect our families. Enough is enough.
Some people are worried Joe Grimaldi's emotional remarks will drive a deeper wedge between the community and police. Jessica Borg talked with him about his powerful words that are making headlines nationwide.
The police union president says he's gotten a lot of support for his comments and also criticism. Tonight, he's doubling down, calling on law enforcement leaders to use social media and other platforms to confront activists.
He's known as a firebrand. And if you're the ones that are out there spreading the rhetoric that police officers are the enemy, well, just know we've all got your number now. We're going to be keeping track of all of y'all.
The president of the Houston Police Union, hours after 4 officers were shot serving a search warrant. Today, Joe Grimaldi standing firm that it's becoming more and more of a dangerous climate for law enforcement to do their jobs.
It could be the activists that decide they want to stir up every single use of force incident, even though it is overwhelmingly justified in every single case.
But what you will not do as a police officer or as another Houstonian is police me in my speech, my free speech.
At a heated city council meeting this afternoon, activists calling for council members to condemn Grimaldi's words. The mayor and council avoided the controversy,
working together,
instead focusing on the wounded officers and community support for them.
Every day they risk their lives to protect you,
they do not
to protect me,
they set
and
me
to
up
protect.
On social media, Grimaldi's comments drawing both praise and disgust.
People can create their own faux outrage however they choose to, but the fact of the matter is, I said, we're going to hold y'all accountable.
According to Grimaldi, by using social media to counter what he says are false narratives about police. Ashton Woods, an organizer with Black Lives Matter Houston, says the group doesn't advocate violence and worries the comments will create deeper divides.
It looks like the police are trying to get aggressive and using this as an excuse to clamp down on black and brown communities who have a problem with policing in the first place.
Mayor Turner says right now his attention is on the wounded officers and their well-being. It's not clear if in the coming days he'll weigh in on the issue. At City Hall, Jessica Borg, KHOU 11 News.
His emotions were frayed that night, and I don't know, I didn't even watch what he said after, but I want to make something really clear. I'm the police chief that was appointed by Sylvester Turner to be the chief of this city. And the people that lead this department and lead a department second to none is the men and women you see up here, the commanders that are out right now, the 44 commanders are out there right now doing their job, the lieutenants, the sergeants, and like I said earlier, ultimately the officers, that quite frankly, the very vast majority don't need much guidance because they're damn good.
On January 28, 2019, members of the HPD Narcotics Squad 15 breached a residence located at 7815 Harding Street. That residence was occupied by Rhogena Nicholas and Dennis Tuttle. Both Nicholas and Tuttle were killed, and during that breach, 4 members of the squad shot. 1 remains seriously injured as I speak. HPD Narcotics Division Squad 15 entered the Harding Street home under the authority of a search warrant obtained that same day by former HPD Officer Gerald Goines, a member of the squad. The search warrant was signed by a City of Houston municipal judge pursuant to an affidavit that had been prepared and presented by Officer Goines. The warrant was never presented to nor reviewed by any member of the District Attorney's Office. The type of search warrant requested by Officer Goines was called a no-knock warrant. A no-knock warrant is a search warrant that authorizes entry into the target location without first knocking and announcing the presence and purpose of the officers executing the warrant. In order to get the municipal judge to sign the no-knock warrant, former HPD Officer Goines made numerous false statements in his affidavit to the judge, including that a 2-week narcotics investigation into alleged narcotics activity at the residence had just been concluded, that a confidential informant had made a successful buy of heroin from an unknown 55-year-old male the previous day at the residence, that the alleged drug seller carried a 9mm handgun, thereby making a no-knock warrant necessary, and that knocking and announcing the officer's presence would be, quote, dangerous, futile, or would inhibit the effective investigation of the offense. A search warrant issued by a magistrate is a government document. In order to execute the no-knock warrant, a tactical plan was devised and prepared by former Officer Goines in anticipation of the raid on the Harding Street residence. The tactical plan was to be carried out by Officer Goines and 10 other members of Narcotics Squad 15. During the briefing about the tactical plan, former Officer Goines reiterated to his fellow squad members that the male in the residence was known to carry a handgun in his waistband and that there was a large dog who could pose a threat at the residence.
Breaking news in Houston. A former police officer there is charged with murder in connection with a botched drug raid, a raid that police say never should have happened. Prosecutors say the now ex-cop, Gerald Goines, lied to obtain a search warrant on a home he said belonged to heroin dealers. But officers found no heroin when they raided the place in January. While a gun battle broke out, a couple was killed and 5 officers were injured, including Goines. Goines is also under investigation for allegedly stealing guns, drugs, and money.
At approximately 4:30 p.m. that same day, January 28, 2019, Narcotics Squad 15 breached the residence by force. In the immediate action that occurred once the door was opened, Rhogena Nicholas, Dennis Tuttle, and their dog were killed. They were killed by members of Squad 15 as they executed the warrant. The cause of death, as confirmed by the ME, was homicide, multiple gunshot wounds to both victims. 4 members of HPD's Narcotics Squad 15, including Gerald Goines, were also shot. As far as who is responsible for those officers' injuries, the Texas Rangers have assisted us in this portion of the investigation.
Good evening tonight. Shocking charges against 2 former Houston police officers for their roles in a botched drug raid in January. Those officers are now out on bond. A husband and wife were killed in the raid and 4 officers were wounded. Tonight, we're answering your questions about how we got to this point and where the case goes from here. We have team coverage, beginning with Larry Siebert in downtown Houston. Larry?
Lynn, around noon, a judge here signed arrest warrants. Then prosecutors called lawyers for both Gerald Goines and Stephen Bryant to hash out their surrender. But what happened next inside this courthouse behind me opened eyes. Gerald Goines and Stephen Bryant turned themselves in court with lawyers, a bondsman, and prosecutors in the dark about it until reporters called.
I've not seen a case like this in my 30-plus years of practicing law.
Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg charged Goines with 2 counts of felony murder for his role in the deaths of Rhogena Nicholas and Dennis Tuttle. In January, both died in a botched Houston police drug raid and shooting that wounded 4 officers, including the now retired Goines. Prosecutors say he lied to get a no-knock warrant for the raid he led. And after it happened, Ogg claims former officer Stephen Bryant lied about a drug buy too.
We recognize that the community has been violated. And I want to assure my fellow Houstonians and other residents of Harris County that we are getting to the truth.
Calling Goines a flight risk, prosecutors asked for $250,000 bonds, a curfew, GPS monitor, and travel restrictions.
I think that it says we want to draw attention to this filing is unfortunately what I think it says. This is not a standard bond. He's been cooperative since the very first day that he learned there was an investigation. He talked with police. He's lived in the same house that he's lived in all along. There's no reason to believe that he would go anywhere.
Bryant's bond was lower but more complicated. His case was supposed to be heard in another court, but that judge was not here. So we watched the judge in Goines' case call his colleague before giving Bryant a $50,000 bond.
I think it's really important for this community to understand our charges that are a result of the Houston Police Department's investigation. So yes, we can investigate ourselves. And yes, we did pursue the good, the bad, and the ugly.
HPD Chief Art Acevedo long expected charges and predicts more will follow. Tomorrow, Gerald Goines will be at a doctor. It's a pre-op visit for surgery he needs to help him get over injuries he suffered in that shooting. He was shot in the face in that raid that caused all of his legal trouble. And Lynn, he is not allowed to leave Harris County.
All right, Larry, thanks for the up.
2 days after the raid and the killing of the civilians on January 30th, then Officer Stephen Bryant wrote a supplement to the original offense report, also a government record. In that supplement, HPD Officer Bryant claimed he had previously assisted Goines in the investigation of Harding Street drug dealing, and that he had done so just the day before on January 27th, the day that Goines claimed a confidential informant had successfully purchased heroin from an unknown 55-year-old white male.
We're beginning to understand more about what led prosecutors to file charges against 2 former Houston police officers. They were involved in the deadly Harding Street raid. But there are still a lot of questions about what happened before, during, and after the raid that killed Dennis Tuttle and Rhogena Nicholas. David Gonzalez turned to experts for answers.
This is not the end of the book. This is the first chapter.
The Harding Street investigation against former HPD officers Gerald Goines and Stephen Bryant is far from over. Some people are trying to understand why Goines was charged with felony murder. KHOU legal analyst Gerald Treese says a felony was committed during the raid that led to the shooting that killed Dennis Tuttle and Rhogena Nicholas.
That is, the tip turned out to be not valid. The no-knock warrant was fraudulent. Therefore, that could be it. Or it could be the tampering with government documents.
Treese says that makes Goines responsible even if he didn't pull the trigger. People are also asking why the DA's office didn't charge the tipster that led police to Harding Street. Treese believes there are still other charges waiting to be filed, but he doesn't think a grand jury will upgrade Goines' charges to capital murder.
Because you got to have a requisite intent to take a life. And here, I think they had the requisite intent to improperly enter a home. Improperly tamper with documents.
Treese says the couple's death is unfortunate, but the review of up to 14,000 cases involving officers is the bigger story.
These officers, same set of officers, could have engaged in the same improper conduct. And that's bad news for the city, bad news for the police department, but it's good news for justice.
He says the Justice Department is now involved, which changes a lot of things. Treese doesn't expect this case to go to trial anytime in the next year. In Houston, I'm David Gonzalez, KHOU 11 News.
Bryant's claims were false. He further fabricated that 2 days after the raid on the Harding Street residence, that he, quote, recovered a plastic bag that contained a white napkin and 2 small packets of a brown powdery substance that he knew, based on his skill and expertise, contained heroin. Bryant claimed he recognized the drugs as the same drugs allegedly purchased by Goines CI the day before, January 27th. That was false. In an interview subsequent to the HPD investigation, Goines later admitted, 1, there was no confidential informant who purchased drugs at 7815 Harding Street. 2, he claimed instead that he personally made the drug buy. 3, he affirmed that Steve Bryant never made any identification of the substance alleged to have been purchased at 7815 Harding. 4, finally, Goines admitted that he could not determine whether Mr. Tuttle was the same person from whom he had allegedly purchased narcotics.
Team coverage continues with Chris Costa.
He's live in downtown Houston, where today's charges were announced. Chris?
Rhogena and Len, the DA, says that both Gerald Goines and Stephen Bryant lied on government records. She says that Goines lied about drug buys happening at the Harding Street home in order to obtain this no-knock search warrant. She says it was during this search warrant that officers from HPD Narcotics Squad number 15 shot and killed Dennis Tuttle and Rhogena Nicholas. Now, OGG says that her office is pouring over 14,000 cases from Squad number 15, closely scrutinizing the work by Goines, which a grand jury will also soon start examining. She says her office never saw the no-knock warrant after it was signed by a judge. And she says Goines' intent was to deceive Houston police investigators, supervisors, and the public. Now, she says her office and the grand jury will be looking to see if there was a larger problem inside Houston police, as well as closely examining cases Goines was involved in.
We recognize that the community has been violated, and I want to assure my fellow Houstonians and other residents of Harris County that we are getting to the truth.
The district attorney also says that the grand jury is going to be looking at all those other cases to see if it's possible that other charges may need to be brought against Goines or any other officers. Back to you.
Chris, thank you. And just moments ago, Mayor Sylvester Turner issuing a statement about the case, saying in part, the city will fully cooperate in seeing that justice is done. We will work even harder to earn the trust and respect of the people we are obligated.
Officer Goines was injured. The interview was taped. He answered in writing. Because false information was provided to a magistrate in order to secure a search warrant, Goines' actions violated Texas Penal Code 37.10, tampering with the government record, a second-degree felony. Because the execution of the warrant resulted in forced entry into the home at 7815 Harding by armed police officers, members of Goines' own squad shot and killed Rhogena Nicholas, Dennis Tuttle, and their dog. Under Texas law, if, during the commission of one felony, in this case tampering with a government record, a person commits an act clearly dangerous to human life, execution of a no-knock warrant by an armed squad of police officers into a private residence, that causes the death of another, in this case 2 deaths, it's first-degree murder. We call that felony murder.
Enough is enough. And if you're the ones that are out there spreading the rhetoric that police officers are the enemy, well, just know we've all got your number now.
So pray for all of our police officers.
Upon making entry, they immediately came under fire.
We have an officer who has been relieved, but we certainly don't want anyone to read too far into something like this.
A female suspect went towards that officer, reached over the officer, and started making a move for his shotgun.
You know, we're not drawing any conclusions, and no one should either otherwise.
Are charges that are a result of the Houston Police Department's investigation.
You know, whenever we have a high-profile case like this, the rumor mill always gets going.
Bryant's claims were false. We recognize that the community has been violated.
And the people that lead this department and lead a department second to none is the men and women you see up here, the commanders that are out right now, the 44 commanders are out there right now doing their job, the lieutenants, the sergeants, and like I said earlier, ultimately the officers. Because there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there and people are going, running rampant. Let me just say this, we never run away from the truth.
It's first-degree murder. We call that felony murder.
Art Acevedo still has not turned over the case to the district attorney's office for review.
And let me tell you why I think these cops are heroes.
On January 20-
No, they kept to themselves ever since then. He wasn't allowed to come out of the house. And you couldn't tell that they were doing any kind of drug trafficking because they're poor. They hardly had anything to eat.
So yes, we can investigate ourselves.
He was a machinist, and he's a Vietnam veteran. And he wouldn't hurt nobody that I know of. No, not Dennis.
Bryant's claims were false.
We also recovered another drug, white powdery substance believed to either be cocaine or potentially fentanyl.
He further fabricated that 2 days after the raid on the Harding Street residence, that he, quote, recovered a plastic bag that contained a white napkin and 2 small packets of a brown powdery substance that he knew, based on his skill and expertise, contained heroin.
Goines is also under investigation for allegedly stealing guns, drugs, and money.
Now, we're going to be keeping track of all of y'all, and we're going to make sure that we hold you accountable every time you stir the pot on our police officers. We've had enough, folks. We're out there doing our jobs every day, putting our lives on the line for our families. Enough is enough.
This is what happens when you call the cops. Say what? This is what happens when you call the cops. Come on. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot.
I'm sick of people being victimized by criminal cops. Psychopathic predators terrorizing neighborhood blocks. Equipped with pepper spray, mace, cuffs, tasers, and glocks. They like serial killers acting out subliminal thoughts. Forget what you taught. These cops have got a license to kill. Witness intimidation means that they can use it at will. Code of silence means that the pigs will never let out a squeal. And if they go to court, they know the judge will make them a deal. For real, that's why they stopping me, locking me up and stomping me, confiscating my property, talking in my demography, making the poor commodities, profiting off of poverty, enforcing policies, supporting prison economies. Yeah, no one makes money when the violence stops. Hate and brutality's the way to make a criminal crop. Blood in the gutters, how the rich butter they bread at the top. And that's why this is what happens when you call the cops. Come on.
This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot.
911, what's your emergency? I'm mixed up in the system and these pigs is trying to murder me. They mace me, they tase me, they trained them to hate me, degrade and detain me and change just like slavery. Hands up, face down, left hook right quick. Throw you down, hold you down, smack you with that nightstick. Night shift, riding round, see you with your J's on. You'll get sprayed on over Skittles, word to Trayvon. All the people saying is it's crazy down in Florida. What you saying is you playing, it's the same in California. They ganging like they banging and they'll hang you down in Georgia. Frame you in a case for what you say without a lawyer. Swarming with no warning, now they sorting through your residence. Stormed in with no warrant, now they snorting all the evidence. You better just learn to dodge a box, cause this is what happens when you call the cops.
Come on. This is what happens when you call the cops. Say what? This is what happens when you call the cops. Come on. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot. Yeah. This is what happens when you call the cops. Come on. This is what happens when you call the cops. Say what? This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot.
We got a baby in the living room. Get the grenades, pull a pin, throw it in the crib, blow him away.
There's a homeless guy camping here.
Well, tell him to pack. When he gets up and starts leaving, shoot the bum in the back.
This guy rolled through a stop sign.
Yeah, that's drugs for sale. Get some doctors to rape him, send him a bill in the mail.
We got a black man knocking on a white woman's door.
With 10 shots, point blank, he ain't gonna knock no more. Look, the problem starts at the academy. New cadets are indoctrinated with a military mentality. With them as the soldiers and us as the people they're battling. We're either collateral damage or combat fatalities. Either way, the reality's that it's not gonna stop. Cause this is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. Come on, this is what happens when you call the cops.
This is what happens. Say what? Happens when you call the cops. This is